Welcome to the Story Times. Hello guys, my name is James. I'm 45 years old. I'm a quiet man that just prefer my own company. I'm an author and my work demands long hours of solitude, which suits me just fine. Writing is where I find peace, where the world makes sense. Social gatherings? Not really my thing. The noise, the small talk, the pretending to be interested in conversations I don't care about. It drains me, so I skip them whenever I can. But if there's one thing that used to matter to me more than my work, it was my marriage. Notice I said used to. My wife Lucy and I have been married for a while. But if I'm being honest, we stopped being a real couple long ago. We didn't fight, at least not often, but we also didn't talk. We just existed under the same roof. Somewhere along the way, the love we once had got lost in the space between us. My wife Lucy is different from me. Outgoing, ambitious, always in the middle of things. She works in a high-paced industry, and her consulting job always seemed to need her more than I did. Late nights at the office became her norm. Endless meetings and business trips that stretched longer than necessary. At first, I asked questions. Why so late? Can't you finish up earlier at the office? When will we get time together? But the answer was always the same. Eventually, I stopped asking. I got tired of hearing excuses, and I just accepted the truth. She didn't have time for me because she didn't want to make time for me. I buried myself in my own world, writing, reading, enjoying the solitude that my work required. It was easier that way. Then, one evening, she brought up the company party. She didn't just invite me. She insisted I come, said it would be good for me, a chance to meet some of the best minds in her industry, a networking opportunity. I wasn't interested in shaking hands with corporate types or pretending to care about their business strategies. I wasn't looking to expand my connections. But something about the way she pushed it made me pause. She wasn't just suggesting it. She was practically demanding it. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like she was making an effort. Maybe this was her way of trying to fix things. To pull me into her world the way I had always asked her to. A part of me that still wanted to believe our marriage could be salvaged latched onto that thought. So, after some back and forth, I gave in. I told her I'd go. I wasn't exactly thrilled about it. But if there was even the smallest chance that this could be a step toward fixing things between us, I was willing to endure a few hours of forced smiles and polite conversation. At the time, I had no idea that agreeing to that party would be the first step toward the end of everything. We arrived at the venue looking like the perfect couple. Lucy had gone all out, wearing an elegant form-fitting dress that made heads turn the moment we stepped in. I had put in the effort too, slipping into a tailored suit, even though I couldn't have cared less about making an impression. The party itself was everything you'd expect from a high-profile corporate event. It was a kind of event where people talked about stocks, mergers, and business strategies between sips of overpriced wine. Lucy wasted no time introducing me to her colleagues, and their reactions were almost identical, followed by polite curiosity. "So, you're James. Wow, we've heard so much about you, but it's great to finally meet you in person." I'd nod, shake hands, exchange a few pleasantries. It was obvious that my presence was somewhat of a novelty. I was a mysterious husband they had only heard about in passing, the man who never showed up to company gatherings. Some of them tried to probe, asking about my work, my books, my thoughts on whatever topic they assumed I'd be interested in. Surprisingly, I found myself engaging more than I expected. This night might actually be worth something. The evening had been going surprisingly well. I won't say I was enjoying myself, but I had settled into the atmosphere. The conversations were tolerable, the drinks were decent, and for the first time in a long while, Lucy seemed to acknowledge my presence in her world. I wasn't naive enough to think this night would magically fix the cracks in our marriage, but for a moment I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was a step towards something better. Everything was going well. I could see Lucy glancing at me every now and then, possibly pleased that I was making an effort, until the music changed. The lights dimmed slightly, and the dance floor started filling up with couples. I wasn't really paying attention until I noticed a man approaching us. He didn't acknowledge me. He walked straight up to Lucy. "Shall we?" he asked, his voice smooth and self-assured, holding out his hand like he already knew the answer. For a split second, I waited for Lucy to shake her head, maybe laugh it off and stay where she was. I expected her to wave him away, to tell him she was here with her husband, but instead she smiled. She was about to accept. Instinct took over. I reached out my hand firm on her wrist, holding her back before she could take a step. My voice was low-controlled. You're not going anywhere. The man, Wilson, I would later learn, finally acknowledged my existence. He turned his head slightly, focusing on me. He didn't say anything at first. I held my ground. If you want to dance with my wife, do things the right way. Or don't do them at all. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Lucy turned to me, with an expression twisted in frustration and anger. What the hell is wrong with you? She snapped, jerking her arm away from my grip. You're embarrassing me. I looked at her, shocked at what she just did. She turned back to Wilson, brushing past me like I was nothing more than an obstacle in her path. She was about to leave with him, right in front of me, with no shame, no hesitation. I felt something snap inside me. If you move an inch, I will be forced to end this marriage. That was when Wilson finally reacted. He turned fully to face me, looking me dead in the eyes. And with a quiet, deliberate voice, he said, "You've always been a weakling. And you won't do anything." Then, without breaking eye contact, he reached for Lucy's hand, pulled her along. And just like that, she followed. I felt the weight of the humiliation pressing down on me. But I refused to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. I wouldn't be the fool who caused a scene at a party filled with her colleagues. Instead, I turned around and walked away alone. When Lucy finally came home that night, I was still awake. I heard the front door open and the distinct sound of her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I had already made up my mind about many things that night, yet sleep refused to come. A few minutes later, she stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. I expected her to offer a weak excuse or at least a simple explanation for her actions at the party. Instead, she launched straight into an angry tirade. I let her speak without interruption. "You embarrassed me," she declared sharply, her eyes burning with resentment. "You made a scene for no reason, and then you just left. You abandoned me at my own work party." I stood there silently, absorbing every word. In her mind, she was the victim, and I was the one who had ruined everything. As I listened, it became unmistakably clear that Lucy no longer respected me, not as her husband, and certainly not as a man. A marriage built without mutual respect is like a house constructed on unstable ground, doomed to fall apart. I knew that arguing with her at that moment would be pointless. She had already decided that she was right, and no amount of debate would change her mind. Instead, her harsh words only confirmed what I had long suspected. Lucy's actions and her refusal to take responsibility had sealed our fate. Yet, before I could fully address the issues in our relationship, there was another matter I needed to handle. Wilson. I was not the type of man who sought out conflict, but I also did not let serious boundary violations pass by unchallenged. Wilson had crossed a line when he approached Lucy so boldly at the party, clearly believing that I was too weak to do anything about it. His overconfidence was his first and most significant mistake. I resolved then that I would not allow anyone to disrespect me, and I would take the necessary steps to hold him accountable for his actions. The next morning, Lucy barely acknowledges my presence. No greetings, no small talk, just a cold, empty silence. She moves around the house as if I don't exist, slamming drawers a little harder than usual, sighing dramatically, making it clear she's still punishing me for the party. I don't react. I've already checked out of whatever twisted game she's playing. My mind is on something else. By midday, I make my move. I hire a private investigator. My instructions are simple. I want everything on Wilson. Every dirty, little secret. Every skeleton in his closet. Where he lives, who he talks to, where he spends his nights. If there's something to be found, I want it in my hands. The investigator doesn't ask questions. He just nods and gets to work. Days pass, and Lucy continues her silent treatment. But I don't care. I barely notice. I'm waiting for results which came weeks later. Wilson is married. 2 kids. A wife who, from the photos, seems blissfully unaware of the filth she's married to. But that's not all. Wilson has a reputation. There are records. Complaints from women at his workplace about inappropriate advances. Some settled quietly. Some dismissed. A pattern of behavior buried under paperwork and corporate indifference. But the real dagger? The evidence of his affairs. Photo after photo. Video after video. All documenting his extracurricular activities and his long history of inappropriate behavior at work. Different women. Different locations. And among them my wife, Lucy. The photos and videos had timestamps. He met these ladies in various locations, hotels, lounges, and even a few late-night meetings in secluded parking lots. Seeing that my wife had some sort of affair with him broke my heart, but I don't let it consume me. I suspected it, but now I have proof. Wilson doesn't know it yet, but he's finished. The first strike had to be personal. His wife deserved to know who she was married to. I put together a package. A USB flash drive loaded with images and videos of Wilson in places a married man had no business being. He was careless, and I had the receipts to prove it. Alongside it, I added a handwritten note. "You deserve better." It was delivered straight to her doorstep. I hired a delivery man to drop it off. I gave it a few days, letting the fire spread inside their home, letting her process the betrayal. Maybe she confronted him or packed her bags and left. There's no way to know, but I really don't care. That was their battle to fight. But I wasn't finished. Wilson needed to lose more than just his marriage. His job was next. I started sending emails to his company's HR department. Anonymous reports detailing his history of workplace harassment, his pattern of sleeping with coworkers, and how he used his position to manipulate women into silence. One email wouldn't be enough. No company acts on just one complaint. So, I made it look bigger. I created multiple email accounts, each with a different variation of the evidence, each sounding like a concerned employee tired of the toxic environment Wilson created. The pressure worked. The company had no choice but to investigate. The whispers turned into official meetings. Wilson was being watched, questioned, scrutinized. It took a month, but the verdict finally came. He was fired. And Lucy? She didn't escape untouched either. The company suspended her and other women involved in the office relationship. Maybe they were still deciding what to do with him, or they were warning them to rethink her choices. Either way, the damage was done. On the day Wilson is fired, Lucy walked through the door looking drained. I already knew why. Wilson had been fired, and she has been suspended. My inside contacts had fed me every detail. The emails, the investigation, the final decision. She hadn't mentioned a word to me about it, but I could see it in her face. I stayed seated, watching her from across the room. "Rough day?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She scoffed, giving me a tired glance. "You have no idea." I leaned forward slightly. "I might have an idea. Wilson's gone, isn't he? And you are suspended." She stiffened for just a second, then forced a laugh. "Oh God, here we go again." She shook her head and walked toward the kitchen, pretending she hadn't just heard what I said. I didn't let her escape. "How long were you sleeping with him, Lucy?" That stopped her in her tracks. She turned around, laughing again, but this time there was a nervous edge to it. "Are you seriously still on this?" "My God, James, you're obsessed. You've been insecure and bitter ever since the party." I just stared at her. She crossed her arms. "All I did was dance with the man, and you turned it into this whole fantasy in your head." She gave me a pitiful look, like I was some paranoid fool making things up. "You overreacted that night. And now look at you, acting like some detective in a bad crime show." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just pulled the folder from my drawer and dropped it on the table in front of her. Photos. Lucy's face drained of color. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Then came the switch. The tears. The shaking voice. "James, why would you do this?" Her eyes glistened as she stepped closer, her tone dripping with desperation. "You ruined everything. My job. My life. Was that your goal? To destroy me?" I let her rant. I let her blame me for exposing her, for digging up what she thought was safely hidden. "The divorce papers will be ready soon." I said flatly. "If you have a problem with that, take it to court." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, alone, drowning in the wreckage of her own choices. Now that everything is said and done, I want to leave you with lessons from my experience. Some of you might agree with me, and some might not. But these are the truths I took away from this situation. First, disrespect is the first step to betrayal. The moment Lucy followed Wilson onto that dance floor, our marriage was already over. It wasn't about the dance. It was about what that moment represented. A wife who respects her husband wouldn't hesitate to shut another man down, especially not in front of her husband. The fact that she even considered it, let alone followed through, told me everything I needed to know. Second, people show you who they are, believe them. Lucy had been acting distant long before that night. The late nights, the excuses, the way she always seemed to be too busy for us. Those weren't coincidences. They were signs. Signs I ignored because I wanted to believe things could still work. But the truth is, when someone shows you time and time again that you're not a priority, it's because you're not. I should have accepted it sooner, but at least when the truth finally hit, I didn't run from it. Third, revenge is best served cold. That night at the party, I felt humiliated. I felt powerless. Wilson looked me in the eyes and called me a weakling. And for a second, I believed him. But emotions make people sloppy, and I wasn't about to let my anger push me into something reckless. I waited. I gathered information. I made sure every move I made would have weight. And in the end, patience turned that single moment of humiliation into total destruction. Wilson lost his job. His marriage is probably hanging by a thread. And Lucy? Well, she got exactly what she deserved. And finally, any time spent setting things right is never wasted. Some people might say I wasted too much energy on this, that I should have just walked away. Maybe they're right. But when you are openly disrespected, when someone makes it clear they have no regard for you, reclaiming your power isn't just necessary. It's the only choice. I refuse to be the man who let himself be walked over. And I don't regret a single second of it. Now, I'll leave it to you. What do you think? Was I right to act as I did? Or should I have handled it differently? Let me know.